Part of the new Lost Realm feature, which I haven't seen spoken about that much yet, are the ranking rewards up here in the top right. And the way this works is everyone who finishes in the top 3 when the boss dies for both damage and healing will receive these rewards listed here. You can win both top 3 damage and top 3 healing simultaneously. And when this was first added, these were only available on the epic difficulties for each boss. So the epic difficulty for the first boss was 500 ore, and then it was 1000 ore, and then 1500 ore finally for the dragon on epic. That's since been changed, and there is now top 3 rewards for every single difficulty throughout. Obviously, just intermittent numbers scaling upwards. It will start at 300 Reforge Ore and go all the way up to that 1500 Reforge Ore for the final difficulty. That means it is theoretically possible to win 6,000 Reforge Ore per week across these 2 runs, since you can win both at once. I say theoretically, and that is very much in inverted commas, because if you are in a big alliance and you're not a huge spender, the damage dealt in particular is just somewhat out of your control and realistically just won't be achievable. But there is no spending biases at all towards ranking in the top 3 for healing, and it is very achievable for everyone if you play it correctly to be able to get Reforge Ore from this in some way or another. There will just obviously be quite a lot of competition for people trying to maximize their leaderboard positions through this. So as I said, damage will be somewhat out of your control and just at the mercy of how much you've spent realistically. Healing, not so much, but for both of them, there will be things you can do to, at worst, get a bit of an edge over other people and maybe push you at least 1, 2, 3 spots up in those ranks. And maybe that will push you into the top 3 to allow you to get some of this Reforge Ore to roll into your weapons. So first of all, you have damage. There are 2 main things in your control for damage in my mind, which is damage uptime for 1, and 2, how you're setting up for it. And it isn't as simple as just copying the best formations for like Siege of Winterfell, because it's a different situation. So first of all, damage uptime. This is mostly common sense, but obviously you're not going to want to be wasting any of the allotted time on doing anything but dealing damage if you want to maximize your damage. So when the light wall is falling down in 3, 2, 1, you're going to want to be spam clicking with that red sword when you're hovering over the boss, and do not stop clicking until you see those green arrows of your marches walking forwards towards that boss, and obviously then your damage will begin as soon as your marching time is finished. Second is a bit more complicated, so I do intend to do guides for each of these bosses and exactly how you can counter all these mechanics, but a consistent trend in those guides will be if there are red circles or red cones in any way, you're going to want to be moving out of them so you take less damage, and then you'll want to start damaging again after that. If you're wanting to maximize your damage output though, if you can tank the damage and not die, it will be more beneficial to just sit in the circles, because to avoid these, you will have to click off the boss to stop attacking it, move out of the red circle, and then start attacking the boss again. And obviously you're not going to be dealing damage when you're making that little movement, even if it's just like a few meters or something. So if you can survive and you're wanting to push your damage, just don't even bother walking out of the circles. If you have like a third healer march, just heal yourself through it and just keep smacking the boss over and over again to maximize your damage through that. The next point is setups. So obviously I have made videos previously on Siege of Winterfell setups and spoken exactly how they translate into the likes of All Out War as well. So this was my most updated listings for that. But the goal of these lineups was winning and also Siege of Winterfell. And obviously, there are very, very different situational factors in the Lost Realm which don't fit the same criteria. So, first of all, it's single target, which means the likes of Daenerys with AoE effects will lose huge amounts of value. And whilst Daenerys is by far the best commander for damage output in something like Siege Winterfell All Out War, that is not actually the case in Lost Realm because you're only going to be hitting one target. And if we look at how much damage she deals exactly, I have a grey, so I can't show it specifically, but at gold, she will be dealing 1,200 damage coefficient to 5 targets. If you're hitting 5 targets, that's 6,000. But if you're only hitting one, which you will be in Lost Realm, the damage you're going to be getting from her is potentially less than something like a Patello, for example, with that normal attack damage increase, with that attack increase, and single target damage will be the main goal here. This will also affect other things, so if we look back at this, for example, with the likes of Marjorie or Sansa, healers like that play no part in this whatsoever. They obviously will not be helping you deal more damage in any way, so they're not going to be useful. Night King has no damage attached to him. He is simply a attack nullifier to your opponents, and if we look at Lost Realm, you'll see down here unaffected by any control effects, which means Night King's ability doesn't actually do anything to these bosses whatsoever. Other things which will lose value, something I was very, very high on, and I've had arguments or gone back and forth with people about, is Mengo. In All Out War and Siege of Winterfell, the movement speed is very, very valuable in practical situations. In Lost Realm, you're obviously just going to run up to the boss and just keep smacking him and stand still until it dies. So Mengo, whilst in like every single setup I have here pretty much, whilst he's listed there in these, he's not going to be as good whatsoever in Lost Realm. So you're going to want to be prioritizing single target damage. That means stuff like normal attack damage increases, attack increases for your unit types, and just instant casting damage effects like something like Enzo has. And anything like heals, you got Annie, it's not going to be helping you. Kevin is reducing normal attack damage of your target, it's not going to be helping you. If you're running bows, something like Melisandre, like Night King, it won't be affecting the Night King in any way, and it won't be dealing any damage. So all of these things can probably be cut out of your formations if you're trying to maximize your damage, unless the just raw stats will obviously outweigh the actives of the alternatives, of course. In a vacuum, the troop type which suits single target damage the best is Spears with Jaime for mid spenders at least. The crit synergy with normal attack and attack increases is the best synergy you can get. So obviously, when Patello has increased normal attack damage, that's going to be making the passive crits hit harder. When Patello makes your spears have more attack, that's going to be making the crits hit harder. Jaime's spear attack is going to be making the crits hit harder, and it's all single target damage. Sonara and Layla don't have that to the same extent. Layla will increase your damage, but the only way you're going to get top value out of Layla is with the whale build, and by far and away the best damage you will get is Layla with a whale cav build with Sanel, and Sanel is the star here more so than Daenerys, mostly because of that passive where you increase your cav attack every time a skill is used. So max accounts will be wanting to use cav with Sanel. Mid spenders, if your stats aren't biased in any directions, spears with Jaime on your lord at least will be best. Obviously, if you're full like int refinement, just go with that, it's fine. But Sonara's synergy, for example, is just going to be reducing the damage you take, which isn't really relevant to increasing your damage here whatsoever. And if you're free to play, you're just going to be having to squeeze as many stats out as possible, since you won't really have access to any of the synergy stuff whatsoever. And one final note before I move on from the damage point is on the dragon stage, hitting the towers does actually contribute to the damage dealt. So it goes slightly against the point I made about not moving to reduce your uptime. But if you are pushing to defeat higher difficulties and your alliance is struggling with it, don't feel bad about hitting the towers because it will actually contribute towards the ranking rewards, even though it's not damaged directly onto the dragon itself. With healing, there is a lot more you have control over here for lower spending players. The obvious basic stuff is this only counts the medic vehicle healing, so the likes of Marjorie or Annie or Sansa or healing in any way like that does not contribute towards this. So you have to be deployed on a march with a medic vehicle equipped and in logistics mode. Logistics will hugely decrease your damage output. So if you're trying to do both of these simultaneously, you'll want at least your Lord March out with the highest damaging commanders you can get into it as a normal march, and then have your weakest march or two be the logistics medic marches. When healing with these medic vehicles, the heals will be channeled, and if you move in any way, it will break the channel. It will heal about like once every 1 second. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a green heart with a plus sign on your march when it's channeling the heals, and that will only end when the target that you're healing reaches full health. So when you're healing people, make sure to not move to break the channel because that will stop you healing them. Your best target to heal will realistically be whoever is tanking the boss at the time. You'll see up in the top of your screen whoever that is with a little circle next to the boss. They will obviously be taking the most damage, so focusing heals into them will be ideal both for you chasing the healing points, but also for your alliance trying to push through harder stages as well, because whoever's tanking the boss will realistically want to be kept alive for as long as possible. And if you are running, say, 2 or 3 healer marches, you will have to stay quite proactive, keeping on top of healing with all 3 of them simultaneously. Because obviously, you can't get 3 marches healing at once. You have to individually select them at the bottom and then heal with the hotkey, and then repeat it with the second march and then the third march. And it's sort of a bit of like a whack-a-mole process because obviously, whilst you're trying to get, say, your third march healing something, the first march's heal might have ended because that target reached their maximum health capacity, and you're just going to be rotating through that over and over again. So healing the lowest health targets you can find will be best for this because the channels will be longer, which will give you more time to get the second and third marches healing and getting as much value from them as you can as well. And that is pretty much it. So it's another thing that has been added to the game, offering more Reforge Ore through free-to-play means. It's definitely been a trend recently with Reforge Ore being a lot easier to get than it was previously. We had the Alliance boss, first of all, then the Summer Carnival packs, hugely power creeped ways of obtaining it for paid means, and now you have these supplementing the Alliance boss every single week as a means to get it for free-to-play means.